Hey, this is Lori. Welcome back to Sugar Melts. During our part 1 video of making a handmade journal, we got out a file folder, cut it down to the size that we wanted, and we made a cover for it. Today, we are going to work on the inside. I had lots of paper that I was playing with, and I've decided on this pattern. I think it kind of coordinates quite nicely. So we're going to be putting that on there. But before we do that, we're going to put a closure on the front. There are some parts of crafting that you can just kind of go with the flow and make it up as you go. But then we realize later, oh, I wish I'd done this first. If you don't put a closure, however you want the ribbon or tie, however you want that, sometimes if you wait till the end to put it on, it would show through the inside cover. But by doing it in advance, sewing this through, then this will cover those holes. Make sense? You'll see in a second. So we're just going to work on that today. And then we'll sponge the edges here. I've got some ink out. And then I'll show you what we're going to do for signatures, which will be the paper. They're called signatures in our third episode. Okay, so let's get started. So for the closure on the outside, I have this whole bunch of, it's called Sari ribbon, Sari silk. And it came in this big wad. It actually came looking like this one. But I went and I had this and I was trying to find the start. Where does it start? I just kind of gave up and started peeling it all apart. And it was going everywhere. But it's this beautiful ribbon. Oh my gosh, look at all the different colors and streams. And it's just got everything going on there. And so I pulled off a section of it. This one here, how beautiful. Look how perfect that is. It coordinates perfectly. So what this will be the tie on the outside to close the journal. And I will probably, just because the ribbon is so thick and the hole isn't maybe quite as large, you know, for once you start putting lots of things through it. My plan is we'll make the holes, we'll put the ribbon through here, and then I'm going to secure it with this extra yarn type heavy thread that I had. It won't be a big bulky knot, but sometimes we can make these things a little deliberate. And that will secure it, and then we will put on the inside here. Unfortunately, doing it sort of backwards like that, though, will make it a little trickier to put this on here because of the, we'll have this bulk going on the outside. So that will be kind of a problem too. We'll want to balance. So the other way we could avoid that though, I could just secure this to you can secure it right to the seam here on the back of the binder here, and then it will be hidden by the signatures. You can do that, then it won't matter because they'll block anything coming through. Or we could hide it under a pocket. We could make a pocket on the inside later. Maybe we should do it that way because I want this to go on smoothly, but I don't necessarily want to see the holes when we're all done. Maybe we could make a big pocket on the inside of our journal, you know, a tuck spot for things. Let's do it that way. Okay. So this, as I had mentioned before, I had this huge stash of 12 by 12 paper, and it was just difficult to store, so I had cut it down, and then once I started making journals, I kind of regretted that. So let's go ahead. If you have paper like this that you cut down, it's just pair them back up, figure out which way you cut them. This one won't be quite as critical because it's going to be, that seam is going to be hidden behind the paper when we're all done. But still, I like to do it the right way. So let's go ahead and put this on here. So I take this tear tape, get that out of the way, and I put it right there as close to the edge as I can. Right on the edge. And I have found it easiest if I just do an inch or two at a time, just to keep it right there on the edge. And this is about the smallest you'll find of the tear tape. I think it's 1/8 of an inch. I just bought like 6 rolls of this, so I'm really excited. That should get me through lots of projects buying it in bulk. Okay, and I'm going to peel off. Oops, not quite on there. Let's get that top layer of the paper off to leave the glue down. You don't want to pull them both off. Okay. And then we just line our paper up, covering up the glue, and it's perfect. Press that down nice and tight. A little bit here at the end, that's fine. Okay, and then we'll glue that on the inside of our cover. So we can certainly cut this down or just glue and trim it from there. Okay, let's go ahead and maybe cut it down a little bit so it's not quite so bulky going on. Okay, let's see here. So our journal at this point, our measurements come in at just shy of 11 by 7.5. Okay, so our paper trimmer. Okay, so we got this here. So 11. Is that about right? I feel comfortable kind of leaving that the way that is for now. And then what did I say? 7? What did I say? 7.5. Okay. So let's bring this up to 7.5. Okay. Whenever you're gluing or taping, I have found it to be most successful if I put the glue on the smaller of those pieces, excuse me. So that way you're not running over too much with your glue or your tape or getting into areas that are a little tricky. So that's pretty close to that 7.5. Okay, so let's get some glue going here. And then I want my rolling pin here so I can keep it nice and smooth. This will keep it nice and smooth after we get our glue on here. Okay. And while you need a lot of glue, you don't always want it thick. So I like to run a nice small thread of glue all through there. Let's get that nice and seamed. Okay. Let's get this glue on here. Get a little bit of time with it, but you also don't want it to ooze out too much. So let's the inside cover shouldn't take quite the beating that the outside does, so it should be a little more, not as easy to damage that outside. So there we go. Okay, and so there's our directional. Line it up directionally where you want it to fall. Don't have much wiggle room on this since we cut it down, so I want to get it nice and precise before I push down too hard. So that's Oh, that's looking pretty good there. Okay. So I'm going to just smooth all of this out. Nice, there we go. That looks good. Okay. And then we go back in and rediscover those folds that we had created with that with the file folder there. So there we go. They're coming together. Just keep massaging it. And if you don't have one of these tools, you can use your bone folder. That's fine. So that just looks like this. Nice, smear it all down there like this. Okay, so those edges look really good. So I need a little more glue in there. That's okay. You can always go back and put a little more glue in there if you're running a little light in some areas or it doesn't seem to have been too crisp. Okay, so I've got these edges here. We can trim those off. Get my paper cutter again. And you can do this different ways. You can just use scissors if you want. If you've got an X-Acto knife, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So here, I really like this blade that I have. It's just very precise. So I will trim off this different plaid edge. Okay. Perfect. There, I've got my edges. Okay. Okay. There we go. So this is still my cover, the side with the that's more red on it. Keep just massaging those folds so that they stay crisp, stay flexible. Okay, that looks pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, trash out there. So now to do this button on here, we can either do it on the back, and the back is probably going to be the easiest. But if you wanted to show up more, I like to buy the buttons that have one hole in them, and then I just can sew through, make a little knot. You can make a big knot, have it show through, and then you want to be able to thread your ribbon or closure through that. That's also real important. So, okay, here we go. Where do we want this? So this is what the front cover looks like. I'm thinking right about there should be nice, and then we can have that big closure right in there. So I'm going to need to make 2 holes right next to each other. And you remember this tool I showed you before? We'll use this a lot when we do the signatures. That's real important for signatures. So I'll make a nice good size hole there. And then this is a nice large button, so I don't have to worry too much about the holes showing underneath. So we'll do like that. Okay, so I've got the holes, and I've got this thread here. So all this kind of turquoise, sage, not sure how much of this I'll eventually need, but I do want to go ahead and thread this ribbon through, because once it's secured here, it's going to be a little more challenging to get that ribbon through the hole. So I'll make a nice tight, see if I can do this now that I'm on camera. It's always easier. It's like making bows, right? It's always easier when typing when people aren't watching you. Okay. Ooh, there we go. Okay, so this is in about, it doesn't have to be quite halfway, but so this will be here, and then this will come around, And so I want them to be even in the front here. So if this is here, are they coming at about the same length? Almost. Let's give it a little more on the back side so that when we're here and we go to tie these, almost perfect. There we go. One more. It's just a little harder to do this once you tie that button down. So, okay, so we've got that through there, and we'll be using a needle. I have these really large needles that are great for sewing the signatures, and so they work well in other projects like this one here. So I've got the ribbon, and I'm just going to try to threading needles when I'm live on camera here. See if I can get this to go through. This was my plan. Let's see here. Oh dear. Yeah, this is pretty thick and it's not waxy. So it's a little trickier to thread this needle here. Okay. Get it nice and wet there. Well, am I going to be able to do this on camera? So the other thing I've been known to do, sometimes this helps, is if I trim the thread down to an angle and it just gives you that sharp point to go through. I don't know if this is going to be big enough to get through this needle here. Let's see. It's just, well, I had this plan of using this thread, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it through this needle. I may have to come up with another plan here. Let's give it one more try. If it doesn't, well, that's disappointing because I thought this was just going to be the perfect color, but I'm not having a whole lot of luck here threading this needle. I'm sorry, this is what you're having to watch me do, but this is real life, right? When you're live on doing this stuff for the camera. Let's see if I can, yeah, it's just gonna thread, it's just gonna shred that. So, okay, that's okay. I'm gonna find another ribbon over here. Let's see, how about that one? Oops. Well, maybe this one. These are pretty similar. I think I like that one a little bit better. And, okay, here we go. So, let's get another needle out. And I'll just use this one. This thread is different because even though it looks to be about the same as far as thickness, it's actually waxed. So it doesn't fray like the other ribbon does. So this should go through quite easily. There we go. It's going through. There we go. See how easy that was? It's a totally different experience with this. This is what I use to make the signatures. It's got this nice wax on it. So the way I'm going to do this, okay, is, because I want the knot to be on the upside. The knot's going to be on the cover, actually. So let's go like this. I'm actually going to go through the cover and then bring it through the other hole. Okay, see how I did that? And then I'm going to go through the button, through this hole in the back of the button. I don't want to go through the ribbon as much as possible. I really don't want to, I've got this ribbon already on here, but I don't want the needle to go through that. So I want to stay pretty flush against that, the metal of the button. Okay, there we go. Pull that through. Okay. And then I'm just gonna tie these together. And I can either tie this in a knot that doesn't show, or depending on your preference, making something kind of shabby chic, you may want it to show. This is a pretty large button, so I don't need to worry about it coming out. Got a nice tight knot there. If this were a smaller button, I'd probably make a big bow just to make it look like I want it there. But this doesn't need to be. So I'm just going to trim this down here. 1, 2. Okay. This is coming together. Do you see how this is going to look? And so then we're going to be able to just tie this and keep this nice closure here for our journal. Okay. So got that done. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to sponge the edges of this. And then next week, we're going to make a pocket that will cover that hole, and we'll put the signatures in. So let me talk about signatures for a minute. So you can use really any kind of paper that you want for the signatures. The signature, again, is the inside. It's the guts of your journal. You can use cardstock, you can use scrap paper, you can use mix and match scrap paper. What I'm going to do for this one is I took plain copier paper, and I took some tea, just plain black tea, and I put the black tea in a cake pan, yes, a cake pan, and I just dunked this paper in there, got it wet, and I hung it over my laundry rack. And so it has this fold in it now, but as you can see, it's got more character, it's got more texture, it's not gonna be as flimsy and boring as just copier paper, but it has some character to it now. Now it has all these weird folds in it, so what I will be doing between now and our next video is I'm actually gonna iron this out. The way I iron this is I will put the paper on my ironing board with a very thin dish towel. You don't want a big bath towel, just a thin, your cheapest thin dish towel over the top, and you run your iron over it just real quick, and it won't take much, and that'll flatten it out, and then you'll be able to go in and fold this directly in half, and that's how we're going to work with it. But this is how I do my tea dye. I just take black tea, I put it in a cake pan or a Tupperware. You want something nice and big so that you can really get that paper in there, get that splash marks. For me, the drying rack works great because I can hang so many pages at once, and then it dries really fast. If you do the drying rack and if you're on carpet, I would recommend putting a bath towel under that rack because the tea may drip and it will stain carpet. So I put just a big old bath towel underneath it so that if it drips any, it won't stain my carpet. So just some thoughts about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to sponge the edges of this. I've got this Distress Oxide. I'm using aged mahogany. I use the sponges, and I have Velcro on the back of each one so that I never mix my inks. That's how I do it. Lots of different ways to do that. So, okay. So let's just go ahead and get that nice and inked up, because I don't know about you, but I do not like those white edges. Ugh. So that's going to be what we'll do next time, is we'll work on the, the inside, the paper. So if between now and then, if you're following along, grab some copier paper. And if you don't have black tea, seriously, you can use any kind of tea. You can use coffee. You can use juice. Anything that has any kind of color. And there's different ways to make it a little more splotchy. It is, if you're using copier, now if you're using cardstock's got a little depth to it, so you're pretty good there. But if you're using copier paper, it's going to be pretty flimsy when it's wet. So just be really careful because it's very vulnerable to tear when it's damp. At this juncture, it's not. Again, it just dries in such a way with the pulp in the background that it isn't quite as at risk for tearing. It feels a lot sturdier at this point. And then we can actually kind of decorate it with either stamps or, whatever ideas you have. If you have some stencils, it's a great time to break out those stencils that you've got that haven't been used for a while. Okay, so we've got those edges. They're all now nice and colored in. And, okay, alrighty. So that's phase 2. We've got our securing device. We've got our inside cover. And next time we'll make some pockets. And there's different ways to cover this. And we'll make the signatures. All right, awesome. We're making progress. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Talk to you soon. Bye.